Okay, so good afternoon, good morning, or good night, everyone, depending on the time zone where you guys are. Okay, so we're going to get started. My name is Tiago Costa. I work as a cloud architect and advisor, and I'm here to talk a little bit about deploying. How can we deploy SharePoint Server Farms in Microsoft Azure? So using infrastructure as a service. And let's just go through our slides here. So I'm sure that some of you already saw this. So this is the new name for the SharePoint conference. It's called Microsoft 365 Collaboration Conference, March 23rd to the 25th in Las Vegas. And thank you for our sponsors. Without them, okay, this was just not possible, this kind of events. And let's do your short presentation about myself. So basically, like I said, my name is Tiago Costa. I work as a cloud architect and advisor for the Microsoft Cloud. I also am a trainer, so usually I train people on Azure too, Azure, and also speaker in events like this. I'm also an MVP for Microsoft Azure and a Microsoft certified trainer. You get all my contacts over there, okay? So my email, my website, and also my Twitter handler. So if you want to reach out to me, okay, just shoot away, like just follow me on Twitter, go to my website. There's also the links for all the social network stuff and also for my YouTube channel. So just subscribe that and we can keep in touch. So also don't forget to participate in the raffle. So we're going to have a raffle and you can win 3 Oculus Rift, okay, which is quite cool gift. I think I should ask one for me because I really love that one. Also, today we want just to bring a message about that you should consider donating for some charities, and we have 2 over there, okay, United Way and the International Media Corps. And basically, I love the message from my previous speaker. Basically, was saying that even if it's just $1, okay, €1, one something, okay, even if it's just a short amount of money. Well, if everyone donates a short amount of money, we can basically do a big pile over there that can help some people that doesn't have basically at least the same opportunities that we that work in IT. So let's talk about Azure now. So when we talk about Azure, I always like to show a slide similar to this one or this one, which is about cloud modules. So when we run stuff on-prem, it is cool. Okay, we run stuff on-prem. We have some big data centers, and everyone likes to go there and say, "How many servers do we have?" etc. Well, I don't like that. It's like, come on, do you really need that? Do I really need to have a big data center today? Well, my answer is it is pretty easy for that one. The answer is clearly no. For most organizations, you don't need. There are exceptions, yes. Okay, if you have a legal requirement, legislation that need to follow, etc. Well, okay, yes. Okay, for that, I understand. If you're running some kind of workloads that, well, basically you just can't lose it if you just lose connectivity, for example. Okay, yeah, that still makes sense to run that kind of stuff on-prem. But for the general companies, generically speaking, you just don't need them. Okay, you can just move your things to the cloud, and there's a big shift. Okay, on companies today. Everyone wants to run stuff on the cloud, and you saw now with COVID-19, everyone wanting to work from home. We saw which companies are more advanced and which are not even near there, okay? Because companies that were advanced on this movement, it was quite easy, okay, for them to just tell people, hey, now you work from home, okay? Yeah, okay, there's a change in how the company is organized. Yeah, they might needed to change a thing there and there, but they were able to put people to work at home with less effort than others have done. But when we move companies for infrastructure as a service, there's a lot of stuff that, in my opinion, okay, I love to have, is that I don't have to do procurement for servers anymore. That involves choosing, okay, what is the model and the quantity of servers that I need. That involves for me to have someone in my team, hey, can you do some R&D so that we can choose the best servers in terms of technical specs. So we need to see what kind of tech specs this one has and the others. What is the difference between this model and that model? So this is the kind of stuff that we need to see, and that takes ages. And usually it is done by people that they're not hardware experts. So they are going to take more time, and the probability for them to mess up, it is bigger, let's face it, okay? So this is something that I don't need when I'm going for cloud computing. I just say, hey, I want a VM, bam, done. I have a virtual machine. There is also not waiting times. There is not a purchasing department that also needs to be involved in this, etc., 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 because I can just do that in the beginning of the year. I do a 3-year contract with Microsoft or something like that. And like for that time, I'm good. Okay, there is an effort, yes, but it's one time that effort. After that, I can just issue, okay, virtual machines. And if I'm within the budget, I should be okay for that. I don't need anyone's permission anymore. Okay, and all of that time that involves dealing with this. But I still need to manage the operating system, the middlewares, etc. So to run legacy systems, it is quite the way to do it, is in infrastructure as a service. But I can also move non-legacy workloads like to app services, SQL databases. That when we're talking about those, we're talking about services that they're totally managed, okay, by the vendor, in our case, by Microsoft Azure. So like app services, imagine I have a web application. I just need to host my web application somewhere. Hey, I can just use an app service to do that. So I don't have anyone managing the operating system. I don't have anyone managing the middleware or the runtime. It's just something that I don't have to do, and I don't have to deal, okay, with all of that. And then, of course, I can go for software as a service. And when it comes to software as a service, it's like Office 365, for example, that we don't even have a data or an application to manage. It's just not even our code, okay? It's someone else's code. So in our case, it's Microsoft. So it's even more manageable by the vendor, not so much by the customer. In today's presentation, we're going to focus on the infrastructure as a service. But of course, when we do customizations in SharePoint Server, okay, we can also use some of the platform as a service stuff to run web applications and things like this that then will communicate with stuff that you have on SharePoint Server Farms. But let's do a short presentation about what is Azure today. So Azure today is the second largest cloud public cloud provider. The Microsoft bet on Azure, it is huge, okay? And I tell my customer, if you don't get that yet, okay, there is something wrong with you, literally. The moving to the cloud is a bet that the big companies are doing because they see benefits, okay, on this for sure. One of the big differentiators that I see with Azure is that we have 61 regions worldwide. We have a dedicated Microsoft backbone network infrastructure that also consists in more than 130 edge sites. And that's quite a fit, to be honest. It's quite an achievement. And I like this approach of having smaller regions than like AWS, for example, but having more and more spread across different countries. we have the countries that have very strong regulation about certain data that they don't tell you you cannot go to the cloud. No, they just tell you that we don't care where you run that as long as you run it in a secure way, but it needs to be within the country borders. And it's like if you're in a country that you do not have an Azure region in your country, but basically you just can't use Azure, at least for that workload. And that's basically limits the ability for you to move your data to Azure. So what I like is this approach, because like in the United States, okay, that's done, okay, it's very well covered. We also have one data center, one region in Brazil, 2 in Africa, several of them in Asia, also in the Middle East, and also in Europe. A lot of countries in Europe have their own regions too, and that's an important part, because a lot of that regulation that exists in Europe, it's about that you have to have the local data. So the data needs to be locally, and it's like, okay, if you don't have the region, basically just can't move your stuff there. So the big economies, okay, in Europe, the United States, Brazil, South Africa, okay, and all across Asia and India, they're very well covered. There are still some gaps, sure, but for now, it is a very good coverage. I can also get connections, internet connections of 100 gigabits per second. I have 1.6 million miles of fiber. So you see the dimension of this. And also to talk about dimension, this is an Azure region, okay? So this is Virginia in 2014. As you can see on the bottom right, you can see there's a parking lot for cars over there, right? And then those small things, almost a pixel or 2 pixels, there are cars that you see over there. So you see the dimension of the buildings quite big, and they were like building something new over there, etc. So you can see it is quite big, right? Now imagine this 3 years later, or better yet, let's show a picture. See over there, this is just 3 years later. So I just wanted to show you this so that you can understand what is the difference in terms of sizes. Because it's not just this, what it grew in 3 years, is that we had more regions. It's not just this side. All the other sides also have grown a lot. Also, we get consolidations and concentrations of servers. So same space, more compute capacity. So also that. So as you can see, there is a lot of innovation going on. And for Microsoft to keep up with the demand, imagine the logistics nightmare that it is, because you basically need to build stuff, and you just don't build a data center like these ones that you see there in a day, okay? There's a lot of planning involved, takes a lot of time. And you saw the issues that Azure had, mainly in Europe, or also a little bit in the States, with COVID and everyone working from home, that all the companies wanted, oh, I need more and more compute capacity. And I'm like, like using what we're using today, Teams, for example. There are countries that Teams growed 800% or 700 or something like that, which is like, I'm like, my God, that's like astonishing to grow that you can have in a single product. And to accumulate all of that, there's some servers somewhere that we need to have them available to basically keep up with all the demand. And still managing stuff here and there, still Microsoft was able, okay, to keep up with the demand. I was like very surprised by that. It was really a really cool moment. Where do I start? So basically, I started to do Azure Administration, and usually I just tell people, I just go to the Azure portal, okay? portal.azure.com. You get access to your subscriptions and just go there and you just do your stuff, okay? It is kind of cool for ad hoc experience, etc., and it just works, okay? It's great, it just works. But let's face it, if you want to create automations and things like that, hey, it is just not the place to do it. So for that, I advise everyone, hey, if you know PowerShell, okay, just go use the Azure modules for PowerShell called the AZ module. So you just need to do in your PowerShell console, just basically start it as an admin and install dash module space AZ. This will go to the to download the packages for Azure. Or if you come more from the Linux world, maybe you're more used to Bash. So just go, okay, and download Azure CLI. Even if you're having a Windows machine, just go download. It's an MSI package. You can install it on Windows. You can install it also on Mac and also on Linux. Of course, not the MSI, but the corresponding packages. You can also today run the AZ modules on Linux, okay, because they use PowerShell core, and yeah, just runs, okay. But to be totally honest, at least with my experience in the field, when I see people that come from the Linux world and they're working with Azure, they're more, okay, into Azure CLI because it's based on Bash than they are in using PowerShell, okay. If you're coming from the Windows world, but just the opposite, okay? People prefer to start with PowerShell. Nevertheless, I tell everyone, hey, just give a look at CLI. You might like it, okay? And then, of course, I also have a mobile app for my mobile phone, and I have client libraries. So there's a REST interface too that's managed.azure.com that you can even interact directly with that management interface for REST calls, okay? This client library is just facilitates that communication. And all of this, it is possible, okay, to basically to interact and create resources, manage resources, delete resources, all of that shebang that we can do over there. But there is also something pretty cool, which is called ARM, ARM templates. So ARM is the model that we use today on Azure. Everything that we create is a resource. We always need to drop them into a resource group. Okay, so that part is okay, but then I can create the resources like we saw in the portal, PowerShell, Bash, but I can also create this kind of templates that you see. This is just a partial part of a template. This is called a JSON ARM template. So it's based on JSON, and in a way that I declare what I want to build, and then this, okay, will build it. I will do a demo on this, but I just have an extra slide. This is pretty cool, okay? I can build amazing things. What is the problem? The problem is that when I get, okay, to build things with this that are quite large, yes, I can basically create small templates and then call them from a master template, but still sometimes it's just not optimal. So this is why there is a project in Microsoft for many years now that is called Azure Building Blocks, AZBB. I don't know if you already know this or not, but the thing is, usually this is not a very known project. But so what is this? So what happens is there is a GitHub repo that has a bunch of ARM templates that fulfill the best practices that the team that builds this. And by the way, this is built by the practice and pattern team for Azure. So they are the ones that build the best practices and things like that. So they basically, with that knowledge, they created some ARM templates. And now I just need to put something like you see over there. Okay, this is my AZBB template. And in my case here, I'm just saying, hey, I want a virtual machine. I want 3 of those. Windows, I want a prefix named blah, blah, blah. And I have that admin, okay, password over there. And I can just say I have like some NICs, okay, in the subnet web. And I want to deploy this to a virtual network called RA-VNet. And then this will get, okay, based on the best practices, what is the best image, best SKU, etc. If you want it, you can also change it in here, okay? But if you don't say it, it will just get and will just build this based on those best practices. So this integrates the templates that are on the basically on that GitHub repo. So let's start by deploying a standard ARM template. Okay. So let me open here the Azure portal. And let me just do Azure Quick Start Templates. I'll just search for this. So you go to GitHub. Okay, and on GitHub, I have, let me just zoom this for you guys. And on GitHub, I have this Azure Quick Start Template repo that has a bunch of templates in here. Okay, and like I'm just going to randomly open here something around a virtual machine. Okay, like 101. Okay, I don't know, simple Windows Visual Studio 2019. Okay, for example. And then you can open here the Azure deploy.json. This is the template. This is the parameters of the template. So if I open the template, you see this is a template. Okay, I have a bunch of parameters here, more parameters. Then I have some variables, and I have resources in here. This one, first of all, here creates a network interface card. Okay. Then it creates here somewhere. Okay, what creates more? A public IP address. Okay, then I create a virtual machine. Okay, and so on. And then I have some outputs for this. And as you can see, this is just to create one VM, 250. Okay, rows of code. I'm like lines of code. I'm like, my God. Okay, well, yeah, I could indent it in a different way, blah, 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 etc. Yeah, for sure. And to know all of this, it takes some time for you guys to get some practice, etc. on that. But yeah, the advantage now is that I even have here some buttons, okay, that I could just deploy this straight from the Azure portal. So I could just come here and just do template deployment. I could just create. I can just say here, yeah, just create. Build my own template. This will be a blank template, and I could just put my template there, bam, and I have that. But I also have here those basically quick start templates in here. Okay, I don't like to use that. It takes a long time usually to open that, so I can just come here, click raw. I get this, so I click build my own template. I click load my file, and I can just do this. Bam, I have my file here. I click here, I go back, I will load, okay, my parameters file. I click here to get the raw link. There you go. And I can say edit parameters. Okay, I load the file, and basically we just do the same thing, okay? And there you go. Okay, so now I just need to say, okay, where I want to deploy this. Okay, I can create here a new one like M365. Okay, oops, marathon. Okay, like this. And yeah, that subscription is good. That location is awesome. And I could just fill in something in here. I click, I agree, purchase, and this is just going to deploy my stuff. I could deploy this also through code, through PowerShell, or through Bash. That will also work. I'm not going to deploy this, okay? It takes a long time and we're not going to see anything, so it doesn't matter to click deploy. Okay, so the advantage, okay, of Azure Building Blocks is that Azure Building Blocks will simplify that. But I'm going to keep Azure Building Blocks to the end so that you guys can see this. So deploying a SharePoint farm, okay, and I have a huge background in SharePoint. This is why I do this kind of sessions, and this is why I have to do this for some customers. And this comes from, yeah, some real projects that I have. I have to move very large SharePoint farms running on Azure. They had a bunch of customizations on that, etc. Not going to bother you guys with the details. we couldn't move. They couldn't move to SharePoint Online. Period. Okay. So they had but they wanted to move to Azure. So we had to move a SharePoint farm that was, yeah, one of them was really big. So one of the things that I started to basically as an architect for the project was, okay, let's evaluate the options. What do I have in terms of availabilities that provides me, let's just say, high availability in Azure? I have availability sets. Okay, availability sets. I create an availability set. I tell how many full domains and update domains this will have, and then I just drop virtual machines inside. Okay, great. I get 99.95 on an SLA if I have 2 virtual machines in the same availability set. Okay, good. I can have 3 fault domains, but what the hell is a fault domain? So this has to do a little bit of how Microsoft, okay, builds Azure in the back. So what happens is that they create clusters of virtual machines for a specific family of sizes. And it's the DSV2 series, for example. That's the family. And we have a cluster that has a bunch of capacity. That cluster has a bunch of hosts, physical hosts. And those physical hosts that we have there, so one of them will host one of my virtual machines. And because I told him that virtual machine is in this availability set, one of VM goes there. But when I add the second VM to the same availability set, that VM physically, that virtual VM, okay, that virtual machine, sorry, it's not going to be hosted in the same fault domain. So it's going to be hosted in another one, which corresponds to another cluster. So if this cluster, for some reason, has a problem, doesn't work anymore, what happens that, well, we still have the other one because this only affects this cluster, will not affect the other cluster, okay? And then this also involves a little bit about networking and internal networking, etc., on the data center too, but the cluster is the more physical thing that we have there. I also have update domains. Update domains is that physical host that we're talking about. If Microsoft needs to update something on that host and they need to reboot your machine, they promise that they're not going to do that at 2 update domains at the same time. So if I have one VM in one update domain, another VM in another update domain, well, same thing, high availability, so that if this is not working, this will not affect the other part. So great. Of course, planning availability sets, you need to say, okay, I have web front ends, I have search servers, I have application servers for Excel. Each one of those need to have their own availability set, okay? Because I'm not going to mix web servers with application servers for SharePoint from SharePoint. Doesn't matter, okay? Because if I don't have a web front end, hey, doesn't matter to have the other ones, okay? Well, at least people that come to the website, okay, they can't reach it. So, okay, that's literally doesn't matter. So I really need to have each one of the availability sets needs to be for each tier, or in our case, each reason that the servers exists. I can do better than availability sets. So later on, Microsoft announced something else that's called availability zones. And with availability zones, I have in a region, I have 3 physical zones that they can correspond to one data center or more than one data center. We should not basically connect in our minds this, oh, it's a building, it's a new data center. No, it's a zone. It's a broader concept than just the building. And what we can say is that each zone in that region will have independent power, independent cooling, and independent network. So you get the idea. If we have a problem in power, okay, well, only one of the zones will be affected. So if I spread my virtual machines across zones, I'm good to go, because it's very, very unlikely to have a power outage, okay, and affects 3 providers, okay, that I have, or 3 power networks, okay, at the same time. Okay? Can happen. Not saying no for that, but it's more unlikely. And Microsoft creating this independence creates a higher availability, 99.99. So 4 nines is what you get with this if you have two virtual machines into different zones. This has a, in my view, as just a catch here, is that is still limitedly available. So not all the regions have availability zones, okay, and that's kind of a problem. Then I also have another concept when it comes to high availability, which is pair Azure regions. Every region has a pair, and usually, if I'm region A, my pair is region B. Usually, B, the pair of B, it's A. There is only one exception for this, which is Brazil. Okay, so Brazil, the pair, it's one data center in the US, but that data center in the US pairs with another US region. That's just an exception in the old Azure infrastructure. So what is the idea of having this pair region? So they have very proper good connectivity between those two regions. It's stronger, it's direct than the other ones, but they are, when possible, always located more than 300 miles apart. The idea is if I have data in one region, I can geo-replicate that data to the other region, to the pair region. And if there is like a major natural disaster in one of the regions, it will not affect the other region, at least in the same level of destruction. Imagine a hurricane. It's just like one of those big major hurricanes, just goes straight, okay, to the data center. Well, probably we'll have a hard time on that data center for sure. But it is quite unlikely to have the same storm attacking 300 miles apart the other data center. It is just too much bad luck. I'm not saying can't happen, okay? I have a wood table here, okay, but but hey, who knows, right? But that's the idea, at least. It's very unlikely that to happen. Also, a big thing that you need to look for is that not all the services are available in all the regions. Look for it before you commit with your customer or you commit internally in your company to build blah, blah, blah in region X. I already saw some very cool designs. I look at that, I said, yeah, that's great, but look, that service is just not available in here. And people are like, oh, well, or like availability zones, for example. I had like one very cool design for someone, and they were just saying, oh, and then we can just do this, this, and this, and use availability zones. I was like, okay, yeah, but just redesign that to use availability sets, because you can't have availability zones because they are not available in the data center, in the region that you have to use, and that customer couldn't use another one, okay? So with all of this is high availability. Let's talk about SharePoint Server and Azure. So this is just an example of something that you can build. So I can have some web front ends. I can have a distributed cache, application servers, and application servers. Look, could be the Excel services, SharePoint, Visio services, etc. All of those application servers that we have in Azure, that we have in SharePoint. Sorry. Also, search servers, always, yeah, it's always nice to have independent servers for search for sure. And then also SQL Server in always-on availability group, so using always-on availability group feature, having a replica of our secondary AD that, well, maybe not just one, maybe two in an availability set. Okay, so talking about this one here. And also having here a jump box, or maybe using today new features that we have today called Azure Bastion. But then in on-prem, I still have here some servers, okay, like AD that needs to interact with this. I have to have like some kind of gateway here, also a gateway to do a site-to-site connectivity and things like this. So I have a bunch of components here, okay. I have resource groups, virtual networks, virtual machines, availability sets, load balancers, NSGs, gateways. Oh my God, you name it. Okay, like a lot of stuff. Building this for customers when they say, well, I want to migrate that SharePoint farm, and we want to automate the creation of everything, including the virtual machines, installing SharePoint, and doing all the configurations inside SharePoint. This was the goal of my customer, and I said, okay, let's go for it. And we were able to deliver exactly that to the customer. But I took notes of some of the best practices that we use. So on the Azure subscription side, first of all, check if your subscription has enough quotas in terms of cores. That's super important. Where can I take this? Where can I look at this? So you go to the portal, you go to subscriptions here on the bottom. You click on your subscription. And then here you can say usage and quotas, okay, for that specific subscription. And you can have several subscriptions like I have here. And each one of them have different quotas. That's the reality, okay? So, and then in here, you have to check, okay, what is the resource provider? Microsoft Compute for virtual machines, okay? And then here you can say that, okay, I'm already spending 52 CPUs, okay, of 350. Okay, same thing for DS2, DS3 VMs. You see there's like some of them being spent in here. Okay, and you have to check this, because if I was like 250, 300 being spent already, I might need to request an increase. And you can do it in here, request an increase. Okay, just click there, just really follow the steps. You open a support ticket, you justify why you need more, and you have to deal with support, but then they basically will give you more cores available for you guys to do that. Also, make sure that you have the needed resource providers. Same place. So now here, if I go to resource providers, you see all the resource providers that I have in my subscription, and the ones that are registered and the ones that are not. So if I scroll down, you see I have some of them here, okay, that they are not registered in this subscription, like Microsoft Blockchain. Well, in this one, I never used that one, so I don't need to have it registered. But hey, you should, if you feel that is something that you need, just click here, click register on the top, takes a few seconds, and bam, okay, you're good to go. Also, use role-based access control for your IT administrators. Not everyone needs to be a global administrator of your subscription, okay? So, oh, I have people that they're just dealing with what? Networking. Oh, okay. So just go there and just give them access to the network resources. Databases, okay? Same thing, okay? Not everyone needs to have access to everything. Also, you can also use Azure policies to control the deployment of your servers in the same region. So this is an important one. So one customer, it was not SharePoint Server, but the concept was the same. So they had two virtual networks paired with each other, so they had connectivity. And one of the guys just messed up installing one of the servers, and he installed one of the machines in another region. And then no one noticed, but of course there was a latency sometimes. There was some latency in the application, and well, they called me, I went there and I just checked that. Hey, look, yeah, of course there's a latency. See, West Europe, West Europe, West Europe, West Europe, everything is West Europe. And then you have this one here that is West US. I was like, what the hell? Who created this? And we went there, checked, and the guy said, oh, I thought I had created in West Europe. Well, maybe it said that we used the portal. Yeah, well, just it happens, okay? Not saying bad things about that person. Is a very good, professional, okay? It's a very good professional, but it just messed up. It happens too. It happens just to people that work and do stuff, okay? Also, do a DR for another region, okay? Another Azure region. Like I said, if we have a region that is completely down, hey, and if you still need to have your workload to survive to that, just do it. There are like, for example, ASR, so Azure Site Recovery, that can help you that. And then something that I'm always saying in my presentations and in my meetings, in my governance documents that I do when I architect stuff for customers, etc. Use tags. Please use tags, okay? So every time that you create a resource, so let me just create here, I don't know, like, well, not a resource, well, a resource group could be a resource group, but like an app service plan, for example. This is just because it's just the first one that showed me there. You can just put here all the basic stuff, and then usually one of the last ones is tags. And I can just put here tags like customer, okay, like this one, environment, okay, like production, owner, okay, this is the owner of this. Always tag all the resources. It's like a key value pair. What tags should you use? Well, cost center, okay, owner, so that we know we should we contact when something we want to deal with something about this one. Environment, okay, so all of this should be like basic tags that you should have, okay. About resource groups, always a big question. Should I create one resource group for my project or several? Well, kind of depends, to be honest, by the size of the project. If it's a considerable size on the project, yeah, I will create one per SharePoint role. So I have like, oh, application servers for this. It's one for me. I have others. I will create another resource group for that, okay? Also separate resource groups from the global infrastructure resources. There are stuff that is global, like the networks, etc. And you should have people that only manage the network. They don't need to manage and see the your server. So it will facilitate a little bit that. And of course, use RBAC to control access to resource groups only to the IT professionals that they need to have that. Basically, what about best practices when it comes to networking? One subnet for each SharePoint role. That's like super important, because then together I can have, okay, NSGs, network security groups, that will allow or deny certain traffic. And because all those machines on that specific role will have the same needs in terms of open ports. So I can have one NSG, put it in front of the subnet, and I don't need to have one NSG per virtual machine, okay? Also, one subnet for the gateway, if you have to connect this with on-prem, okay, so yeah, we're going to need that, and one subnet for the jump box, or today, well, basically for Azure Bastion, we should have a gateway for Azure Bastion. In terms of storage, okay, it's basically similar best practices for the on-prem deployments, to be honest. SharePoint servers should have a separated disk for logs, okay? So you should basically create those. Search index server roles need additional disk space because they need to store the index, so don't forget that. SQL Server should have separated disks for data and logs. It's like 101 on creating databases in the SQL Server. Also create separated disks for TempDB. You can even use for that. There are like white papers on this online, but there are like even some that recommend the use of a temporary drive for the TempDB. The temporary drive is local NVMe SSD storage, okay? And also SQL Server, you can add more disks, okay, for database backups if you need it, or just use an Azure storage account for that if you also want that. In terms of security, add rules to NSGs to isolate subnets and roles. Don't assign public IP addresses to virtual machines. Please don't do this, okay? There are like so many stories online of companies that got hacked because of this, okay? So please don't do it. If you want to get there from the internet, okay, there are load balancers, application gateways that you can and should use. And well, for intrusion detection, okay, consider using a network vertical appliance, okay, in front of this or in front of an internal load balancer, okay. Also use IPsec policies for encryption of clear text traffic between servers, etc., and install anti-malware agents on each one of the virtual machines. When it comes to high availability and resiliency, use load balancers in front of the front ends for SharePoint. Use availability sets for availability zones for virtual machines of the same role. See here. Use SQL Server always on. Create a DR infrastructure in another region using ASR. Already covered that too. And then I have here something that everyone asks me, oh, what's the size recommendations? Again, I will give an answer that I hate. Kind of depends, right? Depends on what size of a farm you need. This is kind of some, okay, that I came across that I was like, I kind of agreed, okay? So if you have 8 SharePoint servers, I'll give 4 cores each at least, okay? If I'm having for the Azure Active Directory, the controls that you have, well, at least 1 core for each. I will give 2, but okay, 1 core is okay. 2 SQL Server virtual machines on standard DS 3v2. Okay, so each one has 8 cores. 1 majority node for this with just 1 core, and 1 management server, just 1 core. That one it's slow, but it's more than enough. It will not have a big impact on the farm itself. And then search, well, yeah. So search, we recommend at least 56 gigs of RAM, 8 core machines. And yeah, it kind of depends on many. Okay, you're going to need, depends on the volume of data that you have to index. Doing all the deployment. So we had to do the deployment, right? And so we use Azure DevOps with pipelines to deploy for the infrastructure, and we use a mix of Bash, PowerShell with Azure Building Blocks. And then PowerShell desired state configuration to install SharePoint inside the virtual machines and all the prerequisites, installation and configuration. So I to create automations, okay? To create all of this. I've just created out, this is the PowerShell script to import our configurations and import some web parts and things like that that we had there. Oh, okay, great. This is what you guys want as it is, right? As it is. Okay, great. And we just did that. Okay, some of them they already had, so we could just reuse this. And then literally with a push of a button in the end, we were able, okay, to create all of that. I will bring you here part of that, and I will provide you all these links here afterwards, okay? So this that you see here, let me just zoom this a little bit. This here is basically what this is using Azure Building Blocks. This will install the building blocks. Then you need to log in. I'm using Bash here. And then I have basically this is Azure Building Blocks. Just run this in this subscription, in this resource group. If the resource group doesn't exist, it will create it for you. Then you pass a location. And then here you pass what is the parameters. And then if you do just this will generate the ARM parameters files. But because I said deploy, it will also deploy this. So, and I run this one here. This one here just creates this on-prem JSON that we can see here. There is on-prem JSON. So it's this file here. And this is a file that it's still big, okay, but this, it's like 260. This one here creates 3 virtual machines. It creates a virtual network on-prem to simulate, okay, the one that we said it was the basically the one that we had on-prem, okay. Then this one here installs all the network stuff, okay, the virtual network, and connects that with the other network. So it does a site-to-site connection with the other network. And then this one here creates a jump box, AD domain controllers, and SQL Server virtual machines. This one here creates the failover clusters and availability groups, SharePoint Server virtual machines, and so on. Okay, then I have others here for some others, and this one here creates the NSGs. Okay, so if I run all of this, takes hours. So I guess no one wants to stay here. I already run this for you guys. And let me just close this. So this created 2 resource groups, okay? So if I just tell here that I just want this subscription. So the 2 resource groups that I want to focus on are on those. The other ones are other demos that I do, okay? So this here is the on-prem thing. So it's like the first, okay, the first. So it's the first template, and if we go to that one, you see what I have here. So I have here a virtual machine, another virtual machine. They come with Azure Active Directory, Windows Server Active Directory, and I created a VPN connection, okay, a gateway, etc. And then this will connect with the other VNet. Then the other VNet is this one, is where I have all the resources. So I created a single VNet where I have all the resources. And now, look, as you can see, there is like bunch of virtual machines in here. So if we just go to virtual machines, okay, you can get a more comprehensive list in here. So this is the 2 on-prem VMs that I see. The last 2, it's for other stuff that I have here, so just ignore those. I have 2 front ends, I have 2 search, okay, a job, okay, DCH, an app, okay, and AEDs. Those 2 AEDs are the ones that are supporting basically SharePoint Server. So, and I created all of this, and in just one script, okay, I can build all of it. As you can see here, the script. Let me just open this. Like for example here, the Azure one, so that you can have a notion on what this does. So I tell here, okay, it's a virtual machine. This is the size, okay, it's a Windows. I do stuff here that this is just for demo purposes. You should never put your usernames and passwords. There are other ways to do this. And then somewhere in here, okay, you install extensions. Those are virtual machine extensions that we can build here. And as you can see, I have a bunch, okay, of extensions here that I can do. And then this is the SharePoint 26, okay, so basically ADDS, and this is basically a zip package of a PowerShell that has, okay, to create an Azure Active Directory domain services forest. And I have a bunch of others that basically install SharePoint, install the prerequisites of SharePoint, everything, okay? And as you can see, yes, this is like huge. Okay, so if you guys want this, just reach out to me on Twitter or via email, etc. I can give you access to the files. Okay, the files are, it's just public. I don't care. I can even post it on Twitter. Okay, just go on Twitter. I will post this on GitHub so that you guys can get there, the files from there. And as you can see, there is the Azure 2, Azure 3, Azure 4, etc. I try to divide it where it makes sense, so that it's just easier for us to have smaller bits and not just one big file. Okay, so there are some reference designs for SharePoint 2 online. Okay, this is one for development. Okay, that you just have basically on-prem users through a VPN. They get to a VNet, and we have an Active Directory here, but then just a SharePoint and a server. Okay, just for development is more than enough. Where I can have high availability SharePoint servers that you can see here. So I have a load balancer. I have a bunch of front-end servers in here. Okay, I can then have a distributed cache, a backend, a bunch of storage accounts to provide space to drop diagnostic information, etc. And also here, this is my data layer. Okay. All my data layer, all this in the same virtual network, but of course in different subnets always. Okay. I'll leave you some reference links for Azure Building Blocks. This is the wiki for Building Blocks. It's quite useful. Okay, I have a bunch of examples there. Also a reference guide for SharePoint, Quick Start templates, the site that I showed you before, and ARM templates. So if you want to build ARM templates, native ARM templates, this is where the documentation is that tells you what to put in every single thing. It is pretty cool. And there you go. So this is it. My name is Tiago Costa, and this is how you can run SharePoint servers in Azure. So I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. Don't forget to do speaker feedback and event feedback, and I'll be here to answer some questions if you guys have some questions. Okay. So I see here a question. If I can still run, as far as I can understand, if I can still run Office Online Server, right? I think OOS stands for Office Online Servers. If it is still a constraint, I have that in the customer. And yeah, there was some documentation about that. We might have some problems with that, but well, together, I think that project was done together with Microsoft. We kind of have the vouch for them, okay, and we implement it. But to be totally honest, Prakash, if you tweet me a message, I will try to follow it. I can contact the customer and to see if they have some problems, okay? Because to be totally honest, they shouldn't have, because they never reach out to me, so they should be okay. Yeah, but I will definitely, if you want, I can follow you on that. Okay. Cool. Okay. Thank you very much.